You've been driven through about 20 times this month?
Probably my husband or I.
Okay, but this is you, right?
Both of us, yes. We
Okay.
both drive the same vehicle.
Okay, so you have you're going to stand by, you don't know why I'm here?
No.
Okay. There was a theft of a package from 5245 Ridge Trail on Tuesday. Like I said, we have cameras everywhere in that town. You can't get a breath of fresh air in or out without us knowing.
Right.
You know the quality on the camera doorbell you have.
Yep.
I've got that on my phone right now of you taking that package.
These flock cameras, it's certainly a hot topic. There's stuff all over the internet. People are all up in arms. There's 111,000, I think, is the last approximate account of these cameras everywhere. Everybody's screaming about their civil liberties. What's your take on all this? Look at this poor woman that looks to be wrongfully accused based on some flock camera technology gone amok.
Right. So the problem with flock cameras, and for those who don't know, I can't imagine too many people don't know what a flock camera is at this point, but you'll see them in lots of public places. They're usually purchased by governments, local governments, municipalities, and they're perched up on either their own poles or they're on electrical poles, light poles, city streets, roads, and so forth, near parks, near schools, near churches, oddly, places where you wouldn't think you'd want to have people observing, but near churches and schools. And so the technology basically uses a camera, very simple camera that has an infrared capacity to it. It's powered by solar panels on top, and it feeds this data continuously into Flock's servers, and there is where the magic happens. All this little bits of data about the license plates it sees.
Well, they're called LPR cameras, right? These license plate readers, right?
They're license plate readers, but they also can see people riding bikes, and they can see cars without license plates, right? They have software embedded on the servers that's able to determine the color of the car, make of the car, model of the car, independent of the license plate. So there's a lot more going on besides just license plate reader. Same thing with a bicycle, a pedestrian walking, somebody on a unicycle, for instance. It would pick this up. And it then begins to find patterns in this car. Where is this car going? It's going down Route A, and now it turns on Route B, and it goes to Route C, and so forth. And so it can connect the dots on a person's, the entirety or the totality of their movement, where they're going.
And there's another example of that, Jeff, which is extrapolating forward from your scenario, which is, hey, a brown four-door sedan was used to commit a crime. Now let's use our license plate readers and find the brown four-door sedans in this area, right? That might be, now it's starting to match up. It was in this area and took off in this direction. Now this is a brown four-door sedan coming from that direction the next day, matching now who's driving it, who's it licensed to, let's run the plate, and pretty soon, the database is crunching facts and figures and figuring out who might be guilty and who might not be. And back to this poor woman, Chrisana Elser is her name. The victim caught in the web.
Let's continue this story.
It's bad. It's so bad. I feel bad for her.
No.
Okay, well then I'll make this easy. Since you're just going to deny it, I'm going to issue you a summons that you'll be showing up in court in Jefferson County.
Well, can I see this video?
If you go to court, you can. If you're going to deny it, I'm not going to extend you any courtesy. If you're going to lie to me, I have you roughly 20 times.
You're going to lie to me.
And here's when you left at 12:09. That's when you left town.
Wait a minute.
Take a package. Well, there's no shushing. I don't need to be.
I need to know where this is. We have cameras on our truck, so we can show you exactly where we were.
I already know where you were.
Yeah.
I have it on camera. I have you on camera walking up, ringing the doorbell, taking the package, and literally running away. You on camera doing this. It is her. It is 100%. It is locked in. There is zero doubt. I know.
Zero doubt.
Except there's one problem, Jeff.
Zero doubt.
And except there's one problem. It's not her.
If you weren't such a liar, I would extend you the courtesy of showing you the evidence I have against you. But you are a liar. Zero doubt. Well, isn't there a problem? There's always doubt, and that's for a jury to determine about the doubt, not about the police officer.
It's sad. I mean, the hubris of the cop is, I mean, listen, credit to this kind person who should have been flapping her arms and saying, "Get off my front porch. What are you talking about?" Instead, she's sort of polite and taken back, and frankly, if I was the officer, I would have been slightly concerned, because normally people that are accused of stuff, they act a certain way. She was just like, I don't know what you're talking about. She seems believable. She doesn't look to be driving a kind of, she just doesn't fit the profile of someone stealing a package.
So, I mean, regardless of the profile, what I would have done if I were the police officer, and I've never been a police officer, so I don't know what this all entails, and you know, maybe that they have training to do otherwise, but I would have said, hey, you know, there's a discrepancy here. You know, this is something that we just need to get cleared up. Here, you know, here's this summons. Right. You can go to the courthouse, and you know, I'll be there too. I'm going to present the evidence we have. Obviously, there's something not quite right, and I think we just need to get this cleared up. Isn't the term innocent until proven guilty? Innocent until proven guilty. This guy, you're guilty. And that's it.
He was 100% sure.
He said 100% sure. I don't need to see your evidence because I've got all the evidence I need. I've got the flock evidence, and we know how good flock evidence is. Forget your cameras.
Yes,
right?
I don't think she's the only one, Jeff. Don't we have some other examples?
We do. I just want to point out, though, that with this guy, if I were his police chief, I would have fired him after seeing
a lot of people. If you look at the comments on some of this,
I would have fired the guy.
Yeah, a lot of people.
It's outrageous that he is going to a member of the public, the community there that he serves, and he's accusing them being a liar and whatever.
Convicting them.
He convicted her in his mind without having any evidence that is supported in a court of law. He's just presenting what he had on his flock cameras, right?
Well, he's looking for a confrontation too. His body language, his attitude, it was just sort of this. It was
there was no legal counsel to disqualify evidence, to include evidence, and so forth. So he's just taking whatever he has and saying, "That's all I need. I don't need you shut up. I don't need to hear you anymore." So I would have personally fired the guy. I think you've done some research on this.
Yeah, it was Sergeant Jamie Milliman was his name, and he faced
Milliman,
and he faced disciplinary action. He was, you know, they said it was unprofessional behavior. Pretty easy to see his demeanor. He has a reprimand. He received an official reprimand that was documented in his personnel file. Never a good thing, right? You don't want those. Hard to move around. And then he had to take some training, required to undergo additional training in community relations and de-escalation techniques. Frankly, Jeff, it was him that he was the one that was escalating the conversation. He was sort of antagonizing and sort of provoking, and
sure.
It was really unsettling. And a lot of people would have had a different reaction, a much more visceral reaction, like, I don't know what the heck you're talking about, but you need to get off my porch. I don't know why you won't show me the evidence. If you're so sure of it, share the evidence. Let's talk about it. But no, he had his way of handling it, and it sounds like I think he should have apologized to her, but I don't think that ever happened.
This is not. I mean, independent. My concern about his behavior has nothing really to do with the outcome of the case. Even if she were guilty of stealing the $20 package, she shouldn't have behaved that way.
That's right.
It turns out that she wasn't even guilty, that she was exonerated from this.
Yeah, which is even more painful. Insult to injury.
When I showed my 13-year-old son this image, this video, he couldn't believe that that police officer thought that was the same woman that was standing at the porch and then the one stealing the package. He thought that they didn't look anything alike.
This is the interesting part, Jeff. The addendum to this is if you brought up a split screen by chance and you saw her, the accused, and you saw the actual person, the perpetrator, and they looked very, very similar. You could, boy, wow, I see why the guy, I feel bad. That lady looked so much like the lady that did it. He was positive because I see why it seemed positive. But no. The lady was 10 years younger on the low side and didn't look really anything like her. And you could see it in his own video.
In his own video. Okay, so let's take a look at some other
some more flack run amok.
Video shows officers approach him in the driveway and handcuff him in seconds. But they had the wrong man.
A 6-year-old was forced out of her car, down onto the pavement, and held at gunpoint. All because an AI-powered
flock camera. Can you believe that?
Once again, these, technology, this is what happens. You've got these autonomous cars, and they get into accidents, and, satellites crash, and things, there's false positives on tests. Things happen with technology, and it's unfortunate because if you've ever been wrongfully accused and you supposedly have the technology to back you up, look, these cameras are everywhere, and people are really feeling it's a Big Brother, it's Orwellian, it's an affront to their civil liberties, and you know what? It is. And the question is where is the trade-off in that, right?
Right. Well, I mean, you saw in those two examples, in both cases, these were wrongly accused families. That's always a very dangerous situation.
Sure.
And so before you go and do that, you really need to understand what you're getting into.
Well, I think part of that whole equation, Jeff, quickly is fed by the fact that these people who end up being innocent are completely blindsided, and so they're quite irate.
Yeah.
They're trying to explain their innocence. And they, of course, end up being right in these instances, these examples we're showing. And so that feeds this sort of loaded situation where you've got people emotionally charged.
It's like when the police come knocking down your door only to find out that the warrant is for a different house.
Sure.
That they made a mistake about the address and they came into the wrong house.
Right.
Why are you here? Of course I'm upset. Why wouldn't I?
And again, I think the law enforcement unfortunately feels that they're sort of hiding behind this supposed foolproof technology. Right? It's video evidence. You have video evidence. We see it in sports all the time. You see a replay. You're like, there it is. This guy's out of bounds. There it is. This is what happened in the video.
Well, they're also hiding behind a legal doctrine of qualified immunity. So most of their mistakes get sort of, accepted as mistakes and they move on.
That may be a podcast for another day. It's a complicated, nuanced issue. But I think back to the original point, which is I think these officers with the best of intentions, hey, look, police are trying to take the bad guys off the streets to protect the supposed rest of us that are good guys and gals. And so their idea here is good. The problem is when you go about it and you're basing it on false information and false video evidence, and these cameras they're seemingly everywhere.
Well, so again, the issue is that the technology is linking, the license plate. What we just heard with this woman, the police officer at her doorstep, she had a Rivian and her husband was driving through a certain neighborhood, and that's why it picked up. She said, I don't go through that neighborhood. So the husband was with the car going through the neighborhood. Well, it was picking up all these different movements of that vehicle in that neighborhood, and it was storing that information in a database and then using artificial intelligence to sort of make connections about time, place, and activity about that movement.
Well, I'm sure you'd assume that the AI is basing it on an algorithm of behavior that cars that do a certain follow
even without license plates. By the way, even without license plates, you can search this flock database for make, model, color, road, time of day, that sort of thing, and it's going to pick up anything that's in that.
Listen, I read on the internet that supposedly, and this may have come from the Flock technology company themselves, but it's apparently 10% of crimes in the United States are solved based on Flock camera technology, meaning the video footage. In essence.
Based or assisted?
Assisted is a good point, and this is once again one of these. The carefully worded, right? It comes from the source, and they're all they had to do is, they just put their thumb on the scale, get a little tiny bit of credit.
Yeah.
Point of it is because Flock is under a great deal of public pressure. The CEO on down are for obviously again stepping on people's civil liberties. Nobody wants a Flock camera, that the flock camera is one issue. The question is where's the data that's collected on the flock camera? Where's it going, right?
So that's a great point, and let's segue into another video. This is Tyler Oliveira. He had a recent from his channel. He had a recent episode about flock cameras. And he's interviewing a bunch of people on the street and asking them what their perception. I think he's in Houston, Texas, and asking them about their perception of flock cameras.
By the way, Houston has a huge number of flock cameras, one of the most in the country.
Yeah. And by the way, if you're enjoying this content, please like and subscribe.
Already, anyway, so
You do not like being watched all the time, no.
I think there are two sides to it. Like obviously there are cases where it can't help. And I think that those are good, but of course you have willingly letting the government kind of keep track of us. So I don't like the idea of just willingly giving in and letting the government, you know what I mean? It's like we're not even fighting at this point. They just, whether they spy on us or not, at least before we didn't know, but now it's kind of like it's in our face.
Literally in your face.
Exactly. So I've kind of had mixed opinions about it.
yeah, I mean, if they're gonna use it the right way, yeah, sure, go ahead.
And do you feel like your privacy is being invaded at all?
No. Okay. Privacy is a human right, and I don't think that it should matter whether I have something to hide or not. I don't have anything to hide, but when I close the curtains in my house, I don't have anything to hide. I just don't want, I want privacy, which is a human right.
Same.
Honestly, no, I think if you're in public, man, and anywhere, everyone's a streamer now, everyone walks around with cameras. Yeah, it's happening everywhere. So if you're in public,
So, to stop crime, seriously, crime is going to happen no matter what. I don't give what kind of security systems you have, it's still going to happen.
I talked to the locals in Houston. I was surprised at how many people simply didn't care if there were cameras watching them.
If they're using them properly and actually we're stopping crimes and I could see some metrics where, crimes are being stopped, then maybe. I could maybe say yes.
Given that flock cameras were all over the city, the answer is surely supported by data and hard-hitting facts, right? We got a camera right here. We got a flock camera right here. We have a camera right there, camera right there. It's another one. We are in the surveillance state, whether we like it or not. Rest assured, when you take your little ones to the park, we know you're here. Houston is living in a surveillance state. There are cameras literally everywhere. Are we any better than China? We got 2 flock cameras.
Well,
Okay. So that begs a great question, right?
Yeah, there's really 2 issues at play here, right? It's the act of the surveillance, all these cameras trapping all this activity and this information and tracking people's day-to-day movements and motions. But then the second component of it, which is the surveillance state, is what do you do with the information? Who has it? What are they aggregating with and for? Jeff, there's all this stuff about these, the car companies now have these computers, onboard computers with the navigation
cameras.
system.
You have
they have
cameras
navigation
inside
systems
inside your car.
Yeah, and they track how fast you drive, for example, and then sell the information to insurance companies.
Well, I was going to take a step further. I thought you were going to say something a little bit more dramatic. There are cameras and there are microphones inside of new cars. I think last 3 years or so. And they're actually recording your movements inside the car. Whatever you're doing inside of your car, they're recording it, and that information is getting fed back to central databases and
of course they're scraping that information. You think, I suppose they could be scraping that information for terrorism or some crazy crime activity, but what's most likely what they're scraping is when you and your wife are sitting in your car and you're talking about getting a new couch, and then later that evening you get a couch advertisement in your feed.
Probably, yeah.
No question about, right? They could turn all the conversations into X's and O's or ones and O's and aggregate it into monetize it, right?
So yeah, let's take a look though. You brought up the point of a surveillance state, and so I'm going to share this screen for a moment, and let's just take a look. A surveillance state is a country where the government engages in passive surveillance of large numbers of its citizens, often justified as necessary for national security, crime prevention, or to stifle opposition. This widespread monitoring typically involves the collection of personal data through various technologies and can lead to violations of privacy rights. So, in many countries, there is no right to privacy in some sense, right? So if you live in a communist country or a socialist country, many of your personal rights are restricted or
uncontestable. By the way,
they don't exist, and
right.
it's uncontestable. That's right.
Sure.
Now, the United States, even though we have a long relationship with England and Europe, we have free speech rights that are probably the greatest speech rights in the world, and that protection is very important. But we also have this Fourth Amendment right, and our Bill of Rights contains several very important rights that protect us as individuals against government actions against us, and so when you start thinking about the idea of a surveillance state, well, surely we have to be in some form of a surveillance state when you see hundreds of thousands of flock cameras. Now, I don't want to make the case that cameras in and of themselves are bad things. For instance, I have no personal problem with any individual that puts a camera on or in their personal property. So you have your house, you can have a camera at your front door.
Jeff, let me ask you a question. To your hypothetical, what if you live across the street from a school and you got your camera pointed at the playground, and is there something?
There is no issue with putting a camera on your own physical property. That's
what you get. What I'm saying is, it could lead to some.
It could lead, and that data could be used if something should happen at the school. Then law enforcement, you could cooperate voluntarily, give that video to them, or it could be subpoenaed by a court if it's known that you have a camera and they want to get that data, right? So there are legitimate ways of obtaining this video data, audio data, without compromising our personal liberties, our Fourth Amendment rights against searches and seizures that are not reasonable, that are not appropriate, and so how do we balance? That's really the discussion that's going on. I think that Tyler Oliveira did a good job of just sort of asking these people on the street what their thoughts are, and I thought they had quite a few good responses just from ordinary citizens seeming to understand that hey, there's a balance here between these rights, and there's some good.
Given Oliveira credit, as you did, Jeff, we both watched that segment. It's entertaining. The guy does a good job to show that his episode is cool. It's interesting. Is it a mayor that's running in Florida, or the somebody?
Fishback. He's the governor.
Yeah, governor, run for governor, and
running gubernatorial race.
Yeah, and he's articulated pretty well against flock cameras, and apparently, obviously, they're everywhere. I mean, they just are. You're on. What are they saying? They say you're on camera 1,000 times a day, coming and going, every department store, every parking lot, every freeway.
But that's private. So when you go to a store, when you go to the mall, very few people go to malls anymore, but you go to a store, a physical bricks and mortar store, and they've got cameras in the parking lot, that's their property. They have every right to have a camera, and you, by going on that property, are submitting, volunteering.
By default, you're agreeing to
accept the fact that there are,
I don't think either you or I have a problem with that.
I don't think most people do.
If we owned a store and we may have cameras in our parking lot. We're trying to protect our customers. We're trying to right?
Protect the property. I would have closed circuit cameras inside the store as well for security monitors. This is just a smart thing to do, and again, there's nothing inherently wrong with having cameras because these aren't truly public spaces. But what is wrong, what we have to be very careful about, is the government's encroaching on our Fourth Amendment right against unreasonable searches and seizures. And so, when you are, when you've got an entire database full of movements that you've made through the course of the day, through the course of a week, in whatever cars that you use and so forth, that is probably an encroachment on your Fourth Amendment right against unreasonable searches and seizures. There was a recent Supreme Court decision. It was in June, at the end of June, at the very end when they do all their dump of cases. It's called Chartery versus United States, and it's a lawsuit where a guy robs a bank, a credit union, and on this credit union, it was on the corner, midday. There are a bunch of people walking around. This is sort of a busy, intersection but mostly pedestrian activity. So the guy is able to rob the bank and then kind of get away in the crowds and unnoticed. So the government, the police, approached Google and they ask for a kind of a surveillance net of all cell phone activity in that area for the 30 minutes before, 30 minutes after, and then another round of it's called geofencing, another round of geofencing for like an hour before and an hour after. And so what they're doing is just trying to see who's going in and out of these geofences at that various time. Hundreds of people were wrapped up in this, and their movements were essentially tracked. Google submitted to the request, provided the data. After several rounds of back and forth with adding different metadata to it, and eventually, at first, I think the data was anonymized. And then later, once they got it down to a smaller number of 9 or 10 people, they then got rid of the anonymization and they could identify the names of the people, addresses, and so forth of the people that had these Google cell phones. Well, turns out
the question real quick though, Jeff, is would you be put off? Are these people put off by the fact that, hey, Google knows I was there, Google gives your information to the police come to your front door and knock and say, hey, there was a bank robbery.
Yeah.
Now, you didn't rob the bank, so you're like, oh boy, that's terrible. Well, how can I help? That would sort of be my response, I think. I don't know, but maybe you find that.
No. This is the issue. So the first round, the district courts accept this use of the geofencing. Appellate court affirms the lower court's decision. Supreme Court gets it and says, wait a second, this is a violation. This is a Fourth Amendment search, and so this activity required a warrant. There was no warrant. You see, you can't just say, well, because it's a good cause, we're going to, say that the Fourth Amendment is not in force. That's the problem with this type of geofence.
Jumping around it. Yeah.
There's a case that was cited in Chartery. It's an earlier case called Carpenter, and in that case, let me sort of read this one quote I jotted down here. Because individuals have a reasonable expectation of privacy in the whole of their physical movement, the search in Carpenter was considered to be a Fourth Amendment search.
Sure.
Required a...
There's an aura of civil liberty around you. Yeah.
But just think about that statement again. Because individuals have a reasonable expectation of privacy in the whole of their physical movement. Okay? The reason I'm bringing this up, I'm bringing up Chartery, I'm bringing up Carpenter, because it's very likely that, it's likely, I don't know, very likely, it's likely that one of these flock cases there's going to be a suit, and it's going to go, on appeals and so forth. It's going to get to the Supreme Court. And it seems to me that the case law after Chartery this summer, it's almost certainly going to follow that line of Carpenter, which is going to find the whole of your physical movement. So, in other words, you may not
Which is going to be bad for the flack community.
I think it will. I think it will. There's nothing wrong with, because you don't have a reasonable expectation of privacy in any given moment in time when you're on the street, when you're on the road, you're driving.
Let's go back quickly back to the store, talking about the analogy of the store with security cameras. Theoretically, the store is trying to create a safer environment, which reduces their insurance rates, which reduces their prices theoretically for consumers. And so, if the whole thing sort of plays out properly, then these cameras are, doing good in the name of, lower prices and a safer place for people to shop. So, that's where it's sort of
but so again, Scott, it's different because that's not the government.
Sure, that's what I'm saying.
Acting
Use of
on
these
you.
cameras in a private situation.
It's a private arrangement,
right?
And you walk into Best Buy, then you are sort of submitting to the fact that they're surveilling you. All stores do this, and that's normal. If you're at Kroger, if you're at Publix, you're at a grocery store.
Well, one better, Jeff. When you walk into Best Buy now and stuff, they have a monitor, and you see yourself walk into the store.
They do.
As a deterrent.
Yeah.
There's a deterrent. They want you to know. Oh, by the way, just so you know, we're
it's so
videotaping.
obvious that you're being surveilled, right?
Yeah.
Again,
it's supposed to intimidate the thief.
And I have no problem, as a libertarian, I have no problem with any individual having a camera to record on their property. That's not an issue. This issue is the government monitoring your movements. And in the case of this Carpenter decision that was cited by Chartery, the whole of their physical movements is considered a Fourth Amendment search, which requires a warrant. So this is just to, maybe the warrant is justified and a judge will provide the warrant. That's all you need. It's just saying you've got another layer of someone overseeing this activity to ensure that that person's civil liberties are being upheld. And so you just go to the court and you get the warrant. And if it makes sense. Now, by the way, if there's some exigent circumstances, such as, police are allowed a more latitude under exigent circumstances than they are under ordinary circumstances.
Sure.
And so in this particular case, the court in Chartery found that it was an inappropriate use of this geofencing, and they needed a warrant. They should have
but back to the Tyler Oliveira thing about the whole issue about these flock cameras and sort of where does it all shake out versus civil liberties. You can imagine, look, if you're a municipality, you're trying to make the town safe. Simple as that. And what are the ways to do that, right? There's police officers and there's deterrence to crime, and cameras seem to be a deterrent to crime. A lot of these cameras have signs that say, you're under video surveillance, like the stores do and the private property and public property. Hey, don't think about committing a crime because you're on camera, and if you do, we're going to come find you. And so, there's a whole thing going on too, a whole nother chapter, several chapters, Jeff, as you know, about vigilantes, and they're taking out these cameras, and what's the expense and what's the risk, and
we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, I think.
Yeah. So I think that's a really interesting component to this whole equation. Is sort of, where is it? When is it too much, and when is it crossover? And once again, who's aggregating the metadata, and for what purpose? And listen, the police pull you over for one reason and find something else in your car, right? Then this is that they're sort of widening.
It's a pretext. You're
right.
tail lights out only to get you on drug charges or firearms violation.
And so the interesting thing becomes they use a flock camera at a busy intersection, and somebody's jaywalking, and so they see it and they walk over him, and the cop walks up to the guy, and then that guy's got something in his pockets, and then it's off to the races.
Again, I don't think the Supreme Court would have any problem at all with a particular instance of a flock camera capturing a license plate, or a particular instance of a flock camera capturing somebody walking near a park. But it's the totality, the whole of the physical movement. It's what I call the databasing or the cataloging of your movements, so that they can find patterns in what you do. It's very chilling idea to have the government, having flock cameras set up outside of churches and synagogues and places of worship. If they could catalog this information and have a searchable database, they might be able, to sort of pursue you for various different reasons. And that violates not only the First Amendment, but the Fourth Amendment, right? And so we've got all kinds of problems. And it's the problem of using the data center and the database to warehouse this information and to search the connections because of
the other thing too is as we talked about earlier quickly, when they use the information in the aggregate and in an algorithm, and they say, hey, there's a propensity for Scott to drive back and forth across town, and there's a crime going on involving this kind of behavior at this time of day, right, in this location, and this kind of car has been spotted doing this, let's pull the guy over. and see what's in. See, this is where the thing where it starts to, where the divide comes between, do good and and celebrities.
Why are we always seeing this guy Scott show up at these rallies or at these protests?
Yeah.
He's always there.
There's a famous story about out in California where they had one of those club cards, the things the little barcode on your keychain that you show, you zap. You scan so that you get the prices, the discount prices, and a person had slipped and fallen in a store, a national chain store, and they he sued and they dragged him into court, and he dragged them into court, and they pulled out based on his little scanned keychain code, a club card, they pulled out all the things he bought, and they pulled out all the times he purchased alcohol, and then they asked him in open court, you bought this much alcohol, is there a chance you're drinking at the time you fell? And so think about leveraging the information that seems innocuous, right? You're there buying some garbage bags and some light bulbs.
I was drinking as I fell, and I broke my bottle.
That's right. So the idea here, again, is it's the car companies, weaponizing this information, how fast you drive. Again, a car company could sell to your health insurance company, this guy goes to the bar 4 days a week. Yep. He's down at Joe's bar, and so he's going to have health problems. Don't write him a health insurance policy.
Again, those are all private issues. Everything you just cited, the story about the key card, and all that, that's private litigation. Our concern with this flock system is the government encroaching on our rights, our Fourth Amendment rights.
Sure. Well,
let's turn back to Tyler and see. I think this segment is going to be about what the legal community in Houston is saying about it.
Your clients more often or less often?
It can provide damaging evidence in some cases. They definitely haven't made it harder. If anything, they have helped our cases. Personally, I don't like the invasion of privacy, and I think they should go away.
It makes it easier when there's footage that I can use, and that's in any aspect of the law, right? It makes that footage also can make it harder when people are trying to hide footage, right? But it depends on who you're representing.
Okay.
So.
And if it helps our case, we can use it. If it doesn't help our case, then nobody else will really know that we obtained it in the first place.
Ultimately, I think if the focus is the safety of an individual and it doesn't spiral, then that's great. The problem is we're humans. Things spiral.
But the problem is there is no independent peer-reviewed study showing that Flock reduces crime. The strongest research saying Flock solves crime is a white paper written by Flock using Flock's own data. And in their own paper, Flock admits that the core question of whether these crimes otherwise would have remained unsolved in the first place was never tested. And that question...
Wow.
Yeah. So, other than that, they're great. Other than that, law enforcement loves them.
Starbucks thinks that Starbucks coffee is the best tasting coffee.
Funny.
Imagine that research.
Funny how that works. Yeah, their white paper came out.
This attorney, the female, she brought up an interesting point. She talked about things spiraling. The place where I think that the flock cameras, if they're allowed. And I think they're going to be allowed on a single image basis. I don't think they're going to be able to use the data aggregation, as I just mentioned a moment ago. I just don't think the courts.
It moves into the next phase of sort of right.
The pattern tracking is going to be found to be unconstitutional. I think, but I think they'll be used for any given instance of an image. Like you'll take that image and so forth. Well, where would you would never see government spiral misusing technology, right? Where's the one place that you think that a government is going to use this technology? It's going to be to raise revenue. And how do governments raise revenue? They fine people, they ticket people, they find any way to assess a fee.
Hey, when they see the same car driving in and out of downtown New York City, they want to put a tax on how much somebody's using the road at the wrong times.
They tax. Right? These cameras will be used to raise revenue for governments. And that is a problem, right? Governments, people talk about the greedy billionaires. You'll hear many discussions about greedy billionaires. In fact, in a recent episode that we had, we talked about that sort of issue, the greedy billionaires. Well, and the greedy capitalists. These capitalists, these business owners only care about profits. Who else is greedy? Aren't governments very greedy? Have you ever seen governments reduce their taxes? Have you ever seen them lower taxes? Aren't politicians very greedy? They're greedy for power. They're always trying to aggregate more and more power. And what is that power over? The power is over your wallet. The power is over your purse. The power is over your liberties. That's what they're greedy about. And we've seen this forever. This is the nature of greed. It's not.
Remember, Jeff, in California, they were going to start charging per mile. So they were going to charge people how much they drove, and you were going to pay a per mile fee.
Tax.
Yeah. And of course, this doesn't help for the people that are at the low end of the income. They got to pay some crazy number that they can't afford. They're barely making it. And then the people that have enough money don't care and can drive all they want. And it's the same old sort of disproportionate, it doesn't work, right, on most levels. But you raise a great point, which is what is really the motivations. And ultimately, it does feel like, these municipalities are going to figure out a way to take this data that's gathered by these flock cameras and monetize it and figure out a way to, hey, there's, a lot of people parking for free over here on this street. Let's put in parking meters. Start counting the cars, figure out how many people are parking on a free public street and how many parking spaces we'd have per hour, $1 an hour in a parking meter. And now you got times a few hundred parking meters. Okay, guess how much money we can raise. That all comes from documenting just the simple activity of people parking in their cars and walking away and coming back, how long they were parked there, figure the whole thing out in a click of a button.
Completely. Yeah. That's just the nature of humans, really. It's that simple. Okay, let's go back to Tyler and let's see what kind of resistance is forming against these flock cameras.
Oh boy, this is going to be good.
It's one of the things we want to look out for. It's not just necessarily the flock cameras themselves, but the infrastructure that's going to supply it. We're in data centers. We're going to have to pave over more of Florida just to have either the data centers themselves that are going to monitor these cameras, that are going to spy on each individual person. And then they're going to use that information to do whatever they can, find you for crimes that aren't even crimes yet.
And cops keep saying, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to worry about. What are your thoughts on that?
Have you heard anything about the expansion of data centers?
Well, of course, it's a hot topic because they're putting there's a big NIMBY thing. Nobody wants them in their neighborhood. I did want to mention something quick, Jeff. I think it's funny because Tyler says that the sort of mantra of law enforcement is, hey, if you have nothing to hide, then you have nothing to worry about. And that reminds me of, we're the government. We're here to help. It starts out innocuous. It's like, oh no, you have nothing to worry about, except unless you are, Christina, however I'm saying her name wrong, I apologize, Elser, who did nothing wrong and just happened to be driving through a neighborhood and all of a sudden was a convicted felon on her front porch.
Well, right. And that police officer thought she was. Okay, so in this clip, we're going to take a look at, I believe this is Minnesota. So this
some of the pushback against these cameras.
This young man is clad in a type of mask where apparently some government cameras can read the contours of the face in just standard cloth masks. So these people have learned how to use shaped masks that are plastic, and that the infrared can't really get through the outer layer of the mask to actually see the face itself. So this is a very serious topic, and so it's something that I think we all should sit back and sort of digest and process a little bit, and sort of.
It's complicated, right? It's layered, it's nuanced.
Yeah,
it is
because there are some benefits. Again, exigent circumstances. You need to have immediate action. There's somebody you need to go after them, and you need to track those movements right away, instantaneously. Well. Sure. You have somebody threatening to blow up a city or something. You use the cameras to help protect the large number of people in the city. But again, besides that, just generally monitoring people, you can do it. There's no problem with it. The police simply have to get a court order, a warrant, to do the search. That's all it takes. Hope you've enjoyed this content. Please give us a like and subscribe if you haven't subscribed. And we will see you again shortly.
Thanks, Jeff. See you next time, buddy.
Bye-bye.